Hey you guys, just want to let you know that I have a pretty bad cough this week, so during this video there are going to be several points where the sound cuts out. That is me hacking up a lung. Please just disregard those, forgive me, I edited them as best I could. Thanks a lot, you guys, enjoy the episode. Hey there everybody, welcome to your deck tech for Bounce and Boom. Now it has been far too long, so in case you forgot, this is the show where I tell you guys how I run the 60s, what cards I bring into battle, and why. So without further ado, let's check out Bounce and Boom. Now let's talk about what we've got inside the pile, then we'll hop upstairs and see what is staying home. This deck is interesting just from kind of a note on how to play it. Obviously, we've got a lot of stuff exiting and entering the battlefield. We got a lot of different effects. We don't have a lot of removal, and that is kind of where the design philosophy behind this particular build came from. Now, obviously, we have a very big deep end with 8 6+ drops, which is very unusual for me. But we do have 13 3 drops, so we're going to get through here and kind of show you where this deck's strengths and weaknesses are just by seeing what kind of cards we have. Now, first off, we got 23 lands in there. I find that that's pretty good since we've got some different kinds of fetch, and since it's a monocolor deck, I think we find what we need on time with the 23. Starting off with our 3 core Skyfishers. This card is kind of going to drive the deck a little bit because it's a 2/3 for 2 mana, which is always good. It's going to drop down. It's going to allow us to pick up a mana late game, make this guy cost 1 perhaps if we don't have anything else in our hand to play, any other mana in our hand to play. This guy will only cost 1 because he can pick up 1 of the tapped lands and allow us to play it again. A lot of fun things that you can do with this guy. Basically, he's just a good old-fashioned dude, but even early game, he's a 2/3 blocker or attacker, which can be all the difference. Moving into 2 white mane lions. Now, this card has flash, so it's going to allow us to extricate some of our other creatures from scenarios that are a little bit too dangerous for them. It brings it back to our hand, which is going to be an important interaction with a couple of the creatures that we'll be seeing later on. But more importantly, White Mane Lion is going to allow us to flash creatures out of bad situations. So if somebody is going to be dropping like a board wiper or something like that, we can at least save one guy, get it back to our hands. He kind of works as an unsummon in that regard. Pacifism is one of a very limited pool of removal, so I run both of those guys. It isn't going to take care of certain effects, things that, like Machias, that are going to have ground shaking, earth changing effects, are still going to be an issue with the 2 pacifisms, but luckily this will at least keep us from getting hit by certain creatures, and it'll buy us the little bit of time that we need to set up our mana base for some of our more complex and interesting moves. The pacifism, some people have said that you can take or leave, but I find that it gives you just the right amount of time, not to mention the fact that, since this is target permanent, there's a lot of stuff in the deck that's target permanent, if you need to, you can play the pacifism on turn 2 on like a 3/1 or something like that, something crazy, a 2/2 for Christ's sake, just to stop it from hitting you long enough to kind of launch into some of your combos and some of your stuff like that. So I do think that the pacifism is good because late game you can go ahead and just pick it up with something like Core Skyfisher and then play it on something bigger that has become a problem for you then. Blade Splicer is just a good old-fashioned guy. It was good in Standard. It is good here. It's going to give you a 3/3 with First Strike. It's also going to give your robots some First Strike as well, which is going to be pretty enjoyable. That guy's just a good old-fashioned dude. Doesn't even really need to be bounced in order for him to be amazing. Emancipation Angel is going to bring stuff back to your hand. It's a fun little card. It doesn't have interaction with the Flash Angel that we're going to be talking about in a little bit, Resto, because Restoration Angel can't target angels, but Emancipation Angel does have a lot of cool stuff going on with it, and the border on that was insane. So there's a lot of fun that we can have with this card. It's just a 3/3 for 3 most of the time. It is going to allow us to do any permanent as well, though, which is also going to feed into that pacifism philosophy that I was saying from earlier. Now, Flicker Wisp is the driver of this deck. This guy is just amazing. There isn't a whole lot that Flicker Wisp isn't going to be able to take care of for us. The only thing that would make this guy better is if he had Flash, but at end step, he's going to be able to bring something back into play. There's a lot of fun things that we will be seeing throughout the week while we're playing with this deck that Flicker Wisp is going to allow us to do. Core Hookmaster is going to tap down a dude, and they are going to remain tapped down. That's what actually makes this card good. If it was just tapping somebody, it wouldn't be that great. So that's definitely in there. So I've got 2 copies of that, 3 copies of the Flicker Wisp, and 3 of the Emancipation Angel. So that's how that is shaping up. We've got 3 Attended Knights. It's going to be a first striker, which is good, but it also brings a 1/1 guy. This is going to allow you to guy down early on and kind of put your opponent on tilt. It also works very well with our singleton of Oblation, because what we can do, and what I love to do with this particular card, is I like to have an Attended Knight out there. If they have something big like a 5/5, a 4/4, anything like that, I like to chump block it with my 1/1 White Soldier creature token. And then I like to use Oblation targeting that creature token, because basically what this card reads at that point is, you know, prevent 4 damage, draw 2 cards, which is fantastic to me. You can also use this as emergency removal, but I cannot stress enough that unless they are completely tapped down, and stopping this creature from attacking you is going to guarantee that you can kill them the next turn, I would not use Oblation on one of their creatures, just because they get to draw 2 cards. You can use it on enchantments and stuff like that as well, but we'll talk about that if the situation arises, since so many people are playing the enchantment deck. Now here we got some Will Smithersons over here. These guys are amazing because they are going to allow us to get multiple lands onto the battlefield. They're also going to grab us a card when they die. I wish we had like freaking Goat Factory, because that would be amazing with these. I've seen some sick things that can be done with that. It also doesn't really combo too well with the rest of the deck. I think that would have been an interesting ad, but whatever. This guy's amazing, so I run both of them for sure. Now here is Restoration Angel. Like we said before, it cannot target an angel, but in this particular deck, that doesn't make that much of a difference. This guy's got Flash, so it can do all those sorts of tricks that we were talking about earlier, but it's also a 3/4 with flying, and the evasion's a pretty big deal here. Dust Elemental has got Flash as well. It allows us to get 3 creatures back to our hand. We can also do stuff where it can come down when there's only 2 creatures. If they have a board wiper that's coming out, we can always just play Dust Elemental and clean up our side of the field. So for 4 mana, this is just a strong guy, especially in this deck. It's going to allow us to evacuate the field if we need to, and it's going to readjust our board position. Valor is okay in this deck. He is going to give everybody first strike some of the time, but even if he doesn't, I mean, he's an okay guy. I don't really love him, but as we'll see in a bit, there's not really much else that I would want to throw into this pile. Cathar's Crusade, so we've run 2 of those and 2 of the Dust Elementals. I'm freaking off track now because I'm hacking up along over here. Cathar's Crusade is a 5-drop. It's okay. It doesn't have to go off often in order for it to win us the game. So having the 2 of them in here, I think, is a pretty fair amount. Duplicant is going to have that imprint ability. This is actually more removal for us. It is 6-drop removal, so it's not super useful, but it is removal nonetheless because it is renewable, because we have so many different ways to bounce this creature back to our hand. Next, we're going to be looking at 2 Sun Titans. Now, Sun Titan is just a fantastic card. I shouldn't really have to tell you guys how amazing this thing is. The fact that it brings stuff back into play is always fun. I just like having 2 of them because I like to actually see it. I like to up my chances of drawing one of those guys. Sunblast Angel clears the field, so we run him. Like I said before, I need ways to get rid of creatures in this deck. Sunblast Angel is one of those. Captain of the Watch is going to bring a bunch of buddies. She's a little expensive, but the +1/+1 in Vigilance is more often than not worth the price of admission. Not to mention the fact that she brings 3 friends with her when she comes down. We've got Mirror Battlesphere. I like seldom see this. I think I've seen it once in play. But this guy does work when he shows up. He's actually a lot of fun to play with. The direct damage makes him a very distressing card for your opponents to be across the street from. They will feel obligated to kill this guy when he is played, and that's amazing for you. It's going to eat some removal. Finally, what I believe will be the most controversial of the cards that I'm playing, I have Myojin of the Cleansing Fire. Now, this guy is a board sweeper, and he's a multiple board sweeper. We can't use him with things like Flicker Wisp. We can't use him with certain things in this deck, but the entire crux of this deck, the entire weakness of this deck is not having enough removal. Now, I can't give you targeted removal, but I can give you this big, fat board sweeper. This guy's very expensive, but I run both of them. So far, I have not been let down. We will see how the week goes, but I think that these two guys are actually what makes this deck different and what makes this deck a little bit more explosive. Now, of course, one of the things that you will notice is that I don't hold any of these life gain cards in high regard, and that's because I don't feel like I need to gain life in this deck. The life gain is just kind of a stall. It has me get rid of too many cards that are going to allow me to do tricks later on. I mean, yeah, you could take out Emancipation Angel and put in some of these guys, but that's just not good enough in my eyes. The Emancipation Angel is going to be a blocker, it's going to be an attacker, it's going to have a lot more to do than these Soul Wardens. So all the Soul Wardens are upstairs. Mantle of Leadership, Enchant Creature, I mean, it's got Flash, which is fun, but it's only until end of turn, so that's not really good. I don't really like it at all. Lone Missionary is just 4 life. I don't care about that because it's life gain, like I said, plus it's only a 2/1 for 2. This guy, it's not a permanent, it's not a +1/+1 counter, and he doesn't have Flash, so he's upstairs. If he had Flash, he'd probably be playable. This thing is an instant, but it's just the 2/4. It's not good enough. It's just kind of vanilla. I think a lot of people agree that this is not the strongest card, so I don't think many people run it. This thing right here, it just taps it down while you're attacking, so it's pretty much your first main is where you have to play guys to tap them down. Even though we do have flash creatures, which allows us to play certain guys and tap down certain things, we can get kind of tricky with these guys. I suppose if you really wanted the Court Street Denizen in here, you could remove a Valor and put him in. But in order to really save your bacon early game, you need to have some of those flash creatures as well. It kind of dictates when you have to use things like that. So I think that's part of the problem with this particular card. This guy is just more of the same life gain wise, so I keep him benched. Solemn Offering, I don't really have any use for that. The format has changed subtly now that that enchantment pile is out, but I still don't think that there's too much reason to bring Solemn Offering in. Of course, you could kick the other Valor out if you really wanted to, and you could put in the Solemn Offering and the Court Street Denizen if that is your bag. Life from Within is only going to give pretty much any of our creatures, for the most part, +1/+1, which is not good enough for me to run it because it's a 4-drop. You can get +1/+1 for much cheaper in the Magic universe, so I don't think that this guy really needs to come play with us. Proper Burial's just more life gain. Healer of the Pride is more life gain centric. Stonehorn Dignitary, you can lock your opponent out of their attack step and do all sorts of garbage like that. I know it's powerful, I just don't like pussyfooting around and doing this kind of stall stuff. This deck is actually really aggressive, more aggressive than you'd think because it gets to those late drops pretty quickly, and I just don't want to mess with Stonehorn Dignitary. I know that you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with him, but I'm just not a huge fan. This guy is more life gain, so he's upstairs. This guy is just a little too expensive for me. Plus, if he's a little too easy for your opponent to take care of, make him a little less useful just by getting rid of some of these Kithkins and stuff. He's a little unreliable is the problem with this guy, so I keep him upstairs. Welkin Guide is just until the end of turn, and it does not give those +2/+2s in the form of counters, and it doesn't have flash. So that guy's just going to stay upstairs. The other Sunblast Angel I think is a little bit overkill, so he's upstairs as well. This guy's way too expensive for not enough good vibrations. This is more life gain, so that's upstairs. Maybe if we had something like Cloud Shift, I'd think about that, just because it allows you to kind of stabilize late, plus you get the 4/4, but no, not in this deck. You gotta denote too much mana to try and regain life at that point, and I don't think that's really worth it. And finally, Ancestors Chosen. This guy is going to give you 1 life, but I don't think that he is particularly worth it as well. Obviously, I took out the life gain, and I think that is going to be the crux of the discontentment that some people might have with this particular build. Basically, what I did was I took out everything that gained life, and I tried to make it a little bit faster and a little bit more aggressive. We'll see how well that works throughout the week, because we will be playing this deck all week. Anyway, you guys, I want to thank you for watching this episode and let you know that I want to hear from you about what you think about this particular build, what you think about the cards that I left in, what you think about the cards that I left out, and how you feel more specifically about the design philosophy behind it, because I think that's kind of the driving force of this deck, is how you want to run it. You can have a bunch of the life gain cards in there. I just feel like this is a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more fast, a little bit faster in how it deals with some of your opponent's threats and how it deals with some of the things that you're going to come up against in the current format. Thanks a lot for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all tomorrow.